Hello, Packers fans. Welcome into PackersNews.com. I'm Cassidy Hill, joined by Ryan Wood, who, as you can tell, is in sunny Florida.
Palm
This is,
trees.
I know that is not a green screen behind him, folks. That is real. And I'm only like 33% jealous, which is coincidentally the temperature here in Green Bay while you're in Florida.
Hey,
um,
that's nice. That's balmy. That's
it's
balmy for
really
Green
nice.
Bay.
Yeah,
I'm
it's
happy
not
for you.
bad. It's a nice, balmy March day here in Green Bay. We'll take it.
I'm
Ryan,
wearing shorts right now, so I'm good.
yeah, rub it in. Just keep rubbing it in.
Just
That's
saying.
okay.
Just
That's
saying.
okay. You'll be back here in 3 days. Um,
Oh boy, don't remind me.
Ryan and our colleague with PackersNews.com is in Florida for the NFL owners meeting, the annual owners meeting, which is actually owners, coaches, and Mark Murphy, who is there to represent the Packers, since the Packers are the only NFL franchise without technically an owner. Ryan, I saw somebody say the other day that every year at the owners meeting they should have Tim from Shebogan and Diane from Racine down there sitting next to
That's
Robert
right.
Kraft. I think that would be hilarious. But we have yet to see that actually happen. We know you've only been there one day, but you got to talk to General Manager Brian Gutekunst today. He's had a busy few weeks. So, what
Yes.
was his kind of initial just assessment of what has gone on for the Packers the past few weeks here?
Well, Cassidy, it's 11 days after the franchise-shaking trade of Davante Adams, so enough time for the dust to kind of settle, and for Brian Gutekunst not that he didn't have a plan before, but to really start to go about that plan. And you've seen that with Rasul Douglas being re-signed in the meantime, with Jaron Reed being signed. Obviously, Devondre Campbell was re-signed beforehand, but it's seen a lot of defense, right? So now it's about the offense and how they want to go about that. But I asked Brian Gutekunst point blank, was there any other outcome that this could have ended in other than Davante Adams being traded? He said no, not at the end of the day. This was something that they knew had to be done. Brian Gutekunst was convinced that Davante Adams was not playing for the Packers in 2022, traded or not. So at that point, you get a pair of a first and second round pick that you can help rebuild and reload on that side of the ball, knowing that Aaron Rodgers is coming back. That's the other part of this. Asked Brian Gutekunst, did Aaron Rodgers know? He said absolutely. He said that it's been a partnership between him and Aaron Rodgers for the past year. If you remember a year ago when the fracture between the quarterback and this team happened, it was primarily cited that Aaron Rodgers didn't like the communication, the lack of communication on matters affecting his job with Brian Gutekunst. And Brian Gutekunst said that it's been a partnership since then, and that this is obviously Davante Adams, someone that affects his job. Aaron Rodgers was in the loop. So, this is a team that is ready to move forward. Another question to ask Brian Gutekunst today, are they further away right now from winning a Super Bowl than they were with Davante Adams? And they were 2 weeks ago. There's no question that they are, but he said he believes very much that roster building is a 365-day-a-year job and that they're in the middle of it right now. So let's see what happens at the end of this offseason after the draft. There's a lot of work to do, but it's no question that this team wants to get to it.
I also saw that during your questions, someone hijacked your time.
Well, it's funny. So, all right, I'm literally about the words are out of my mouth. I was going to ask Brian Gutekunst, I think, when he knew Aaron Rodgers was going to come back, and the answer, by the way, I did get a chance to ask that, was shortly before we all knew. It happened pretty quickly. But as I'm asking this question, I'm interrupted by this guy behind me over my shoulder. He asks Brian Gutekunst, "Who's your second favorite boss of all time?" And my first initial reaction was, "What is going on here?" It was John Schneider. You might have heard of him. He's the
He can interrupt
Seahawks
you.
GM. Yeah. I turn around like, what? And it's like, oh, man. Okay. Yeah, go ahead. By the way, the answer was first, Brian Gutekunst said his wife, which smart man.
Good answer.
That's the only answer. And then secondly, Ted Thompson, which again, that's also a very smart answer.
Yeah. Well, Josh Schneider got his answer. Let's see about a couple of answers you got. Guys, if you have any questions, go ahead and throw them in the comments. Ryan's going to take a few here. He may even take more than a few since he's out there in the warm Florida weather.
I'm not in a rush to get back inside. This is beautiful.
Milano asks, my biggest takeaway from the Brian speech is that they won't be looking for a star wide receiver to replace Davante Adams. Do you agree? Did you get that same sort of sense from Brian Gutekunst?
Well, when you lose the best receiver in the NFL, there's only one best. right? And in this case, in this league, maybe there's two best, right? Maybe there's Davante Adams 1A, Cooper Kupp 1B, but there's only two of those guys. So it's not when he said it's going to be an accumulative effort. It's not going to be one guy that replaces Davante Adams. That's because other than maybe Cooper Kupp, there is not one guy that can replace Davante Adams. So that's the reality that this team is facing now, where they're going to have to draft receivers. Doesn't mean they're not going to take a free agent. That's absolutely part of the equation here. I asked Brian Gutekunst with that albatross of a contract, that 4-year, $200 million contract that Aaron Rodgers signed, does that preclude them from enhancing this roster through free agency, or the primary form of business has to be done in the draft? And he said if there's a guy out there they think they have the flexibility to do that. So, this isn't a team that's going to go out there like the spending spree they had a few years ago when they signed Darius Smith, Preston Smith, Billy Turner, Adrian Amos on the same day. They don't have that kind of cap flexibility. That's just not going to be in the cards. But if they can bring in a free agent receiver. Bottom line is the draft's going to be everything. They've got to hit on this draft. We talked about it. They absolutely got to hit on this draft, especially at that position.
You kind of addressed our next question here from Lindell, but I'm just going to, if there's any follow-up, I'll let you take it. He asked, do you believe the Packers are just going to go with what they have currently and a couple of rookie receivers? So it's fair to say that is the plan, is to try to hit in the draft? Because it is a deep class at the receiver position.
Yeah, they got to hit in the draft. And I do think that, you're going to see a free agent at some point. I don't know who that is. I don't know if they're waiting for Jarvis Landry's price to come down. I don't know if they're going to take a very minimum veteran flyer on a Julio Jones. Sounds like, from people I've talked to, it sounds unlikely that DK Metcalf is going to be on the trade block ultimately. It sounds like the Seahawks are kind of gearing up to keep him. And it's also from a team's perspective with DK Metcalf, you got to realize he's going into the final year of his contract, and it's going to take, the Seahawks are not trading him for anything but premium assets. And it's tough to do that when you got a guy coming into the final year of his contract that you've got to pay, just like the Raiders did. The Raiders sent a first and second round pick, but they also paid Davante Adams so that they knew that there was a long-term solution there. He wasn't going to play on the franchise tag for him in 2022. So they can bring in a veteran. I'd be very surprised if there was a blockbuster deal out there. I think that the draft is going to have to be the primary form of rebuilding that position.
Since we're on the subject of receivers, and that seems to be everyone's favorite subject today, Carlos asked, you've already answered about DK. What about Keelan Allen? Is that a name that we should keep an eye on? And then Tommy says A.J. Brown. We have lots of names here.
Yeah, we could throw names. We could throw names against the dartboard all day. It would be a fool's errand. It's anyone's guess, really. But at the end of the day, any mid to lower level free agent receiver is a possibility, and it doesn't mean anything other than they have to hit in the draft. That's the bottom line for this team. They need young talent, and they've got to hit those picks. That's how they're going to rebuild their depth chart.
Mm-hmm. Let's go to the defense real quick for a second. Mas Milano says, it seems that Jair and Russell will take care of the star position. In my opinion, Douglas could be great in that role. Did Goody talk today about that nickel star position, and if that is in fact going to be Jair Alexander, as we've kind of assumed?
Well, the interesting thing he said about Jair Alexander is that the shoulder injury last year, he was in no hesitation to move Jair Alexander into the slot. They feel like that is healed. That is not an issue precluding Jair Alexander from playing slot. Here's what might be an issue. Jair Alexander is going into the final year of his contract. And if he doesn't get paid, Jair Alexander is going to want market-setting money, as he should. He's that type of player. And you've got a guy that, obviously he didn't play last year, but he's young. There's a lot of good football ahead of him. And he knows that slot receivers don't make market-setting money. It's the perimeter corner that shuts down half the field in coverage and makes the quarterback go the other way across the field. That's the guy that's getting that kind of money. So if they don't get a deal done with Jair Alexander before the season, I think that's going to be very interesting to see if Jair Alexander is willing to go and play inside. Because from a financial sense, from a business sense, it doesn't make much sense for him to do that. We'll see how that goes. The other thing Brian Gutekunst said, again, we'll see. He thinks that his corners, Rasul Douglas, Eric Stokes, he thinks those guys can play inside. We haven't seen it. We haven't seen either of those guys play inside. They don't have the skill set for inside. They're both very good on the perimeter, really talented, had a lot of production, good coverage last year. not slot corners. Brian Gutekunst said that he believes that they're capable of it. That's going to be a very interesting thing to see how that plays out.
Yeah, that's a completely different position.
Completely different position. It says cornerback, but there is a perimeter corner, there is a slot corner. They're not the same thing.
Yeah, it's a combination of corner, safety, and a little bit of linebacker. So, yeah, it's definitely an interesting position and very niche. You don't have that many guys that can actually play it and play it well. So if you have one, sign the check. Linda asked, do you think Lewis gets re-signed, and what about Crosby? I know we asked Goody about Crosby back in February, but does he have any updates now that he's had some time with Rick Bisaccia as his special teams coordinator?
Brian Gutekunst said before the combine that Mason Crosby is going to have competition for his job. It will be carried on the 90-man roster, and that's where they're at. He's on the 90-man roster. There's 2 other kickers on the 90-man roster. So it's a job that Mason Crosby is going to have to go win after not kicking very well at all last year. But Brian Gutekunst sees him as a championship kicker. This is a team that he sees as a championship contender. So long as they have Aaron Rodgers, they're going for it. They're all in. And so if he does win that competition, or if it's even close, it's going to be Mason Crosby.
Mm-hmm. Let's jump back to receivers real quick before we say goodbye to Ryan here, because that is, of course, the topic of the offseason right now for the Packers. I'm going to throw both questions up here from Levi. He has first, trade for Davante Parker. Now that the Miami Dolphins do have Tyreek Hill, could they be in the trade market from what you've heard? Actually, I'm going to let you address that one really quickly before we go to the second one.
Yeah, it's a good question. I don't know much about the Davante Parker situation. Having Tyreek Hill doesn't mean that they have to offload one of their good receivers. You can use 2. I'm sticking to, I think at the end of the day, it's going to be about the draft.
Mm-hmm. With that in mind, Levi's next question. Does Goot trade up to land one of the OSU wide receiver, or would he take the Bama kid coming off an injury? Ryan and I talked about mock drafts the other day, and we spent a lot of time on these 2 guys. Chris Olave is a top tier guy, Ryan. And then we talked about Jameson Williamson. He would be a top 10 kid if he wasn't coming off an Achilles injury that's going to keep him out to the playoffs. Is that going to be the holdup with Williamson, who might still be sitting there in the 20s because of the injury, but knowing that you've got a short playoff window with Aaron Rodgers for the next 2 years, and you might not even have this kid at best until January?
When you got 4 picks in the top 59, the Packers have a ton of flexibility, which means Brian Gutekunst can trade up, he can trade back and get more picks. He can wait, not waste, excuse me. He can use one of those picks on a flyer, on an upside guy like a Jameson Wilson, who can be a guy that is going to take some time, but you like the long-term value. There's a lot of ways that he can go there. The bottom line, again, is just making sure that you hit the picks. But keep in mind, 2 years ago when they drafted Jordan Love, it wasn't necessarily the intention going into that draft to go and draft a quarterback. They were open to it, but it wasn't when the first team was on the clock. Brian Gutekunst wasn't sitting there thinking, I want to draft a quarterback. I want to draft Jordan Love. They had a run at receiver right before the Packers were supposed to be on the clock that necessitated him going up and getting the quarterback because they didn't like the receiving value at that point. So in the second round, runs are part. You're going to see a receiver run at some point. In this draft, as deep as it is, as much talent as there is at that position, there's going to be a receiver run. How Brian Gutekunst adjusts in real time to that is going to be very important.
We're going to take a final question here for Ryan before we let him get back to work in Florida. I'm just kidding. He is working. He's working very hard.
I still got a notebook to write, so yeah.
He's in a nice little setting right now to do so. Linda asked, how obligated is Aaron Rodgers to attend training camp, especially with all the new receivers? It sounds weird that, we're talking, or that you're talking to Brian Gutekunst today. We've been talking about this for 15 minutes and have yet to bring up Aaron Rodgers. Mm-hmm. I mean, what's sort of the feeling there with that relationship? Does it feel like this offseason will be a repeat of last, just in terms of camp attendance, or should we expect a lot more Aaron Rodgers time in Green Bay?
Linda, that is a tremendous question for Aaron Rodgers when we finally get to speak to him, because in a normal offseason, Aaron Rodgers made it very clear he doesn't see much need, or he doesn't see any need at all for him to participate in the OTAs, minicamp, any of that offseason program. And on an island, he doesn't. He's two-time reigning MVP, 4 in his career, future Hall of Famer. He can show up week 1 and be ready to play. But when you are looking at the possibility of a pair of rookie receivers being factors in the offense, that changes the dynamic there. My guess, and it's only a guess, my guess is that Aaron Rodgers probably feels that there's enough time in training camp to get on the same page. The offseason program is very, very rudimentary. I mean, what they do in the spring, it's about knowing the playbook. It's about knowing where to be. It's less about timing with the quarterback. Training camp is where that really gets refined. So that would be my guess. My guess is that you're not going to see Aaron Rodgers in the offseason program. But if there's any time in this late stage of his career, if there's an offseason where you might see that, it would make sense that it would be this one.
Mm-hmm. Well, we will see. Those will start here in the next about 2 months after the draft, after rookie minicamp. Ryan, we're going to let you get back to work. Guys, if we didn't get to your question today, I'm very sorry, but don't go far. We will be doing this again while Ryan and Pete are in Florida, but from now through Wednesday, correct? Yes, meetings.
That's right. Leaving late Wednesday.
And in the meantime, make sure you check out all of their coverage on PackersNews.com. As Ryan said, he's heading off to write a notebook. They have got full coverage for you from down there in Florida. Thanks so much, guys. Thanks, Ryan. We will talk to you soon.
Take care.